Hello and good evening. Thank you for coming. I am happy to open the session with His Excellency Kabiné Komara. His Excellency Kabiné Komara is Guinea. This is Guinea, by the way. Guinea Conakry. Former Prime Minister from 2008 to 2010. He previously had held several senior executive positions as the Africa Export-Import Bank in Egypt and the African Development Bank, as well as several high positions within Guinea. Since March 2013, he is the new High Commissioner, or was, no, I think, of the Organisation pour la mise en valeur de fleuve Sénégal, the organization for the development of the Senegal River. He also involved in democratization processes in West Africa in states such as Liberia, Togo, and Guinea-Bissau. In 2015, for example, he was appointed by the African Union Commission to manage the observation mission for the presidential election in Togo. Mrs. Dlamini Zuma, the head of the commission, justified the choice concerning Mr. Komara by his unconditional commitment for the promotion and consolidation of democracy on the African continent. So thank you very much, Your Excellency Komara, for your kind agreement to participate in the International Conference on Leaders and Leadership in the Age of Crisis, which is held by the School of History at Tel Aviv University. And with your permission, I would like to pose some questions for you. And the first question is, I think, about Guinea socialist heritage. Because as we all remember, as an African student, Guinea, under the rule of Ahmadou Sékou Touré, was considered as a model for building a socialist post-colonial society. Do you think the socialism is still relevant in post-Cold War Africa, especially with regard to the characteristic of socio-economic inequalities in many African societies?
Thank you, Madam. Good evening, everyone. I have to first thank you for all of you to have coming here and to have invited me to this great university. I should say that I'm a Guinean. Yes, Guinea map is here. It is one of the countries in West Africa. We are a very small country, but we have two characteristics. It's a country which is, I know you lack a lot of water here. We have 1,200 rivers in my country. We are called the water tank of West Africa. All the rivers flowing across West Africa are originating from Guinea. We also have 4 meters of rains per year. 4 meters. So you can see it's a very humid and wet country. 300 kilometers of coast, and we have 7 neighboring countries. Sierra Leone, which is an English-speaking country. Liberia, an English-speaking country. Cote d'Ivoire, a French one. Mali, Senegal, and Guinea-Bissau, which is a Portuguese-speaking country. So as you can see, it's a country that is almost a transit country. Now, coming to the history, you have to know that Guinea was colonized by the French. And then our colonization started in 1899. So we were colonized for 60 years. We became independent in 1958, after 60 years of decolonization. But we became independent in a very dramatic conditions. In the 1940 and 50, the French country was having a lot of disturbances. And they called on General de Gaulle to come and to try to reestablish the stability in the country. So when he came in France power, he tried to tour African countries to offer them to become independent or to join the French government. So after he has toured all the country, Guinea was the only country to have told him that we want to become independent, the only country. So he got upset against the country. It was a very dramatic situation, if you have to know that. And there was a famous sentence that our president launched that day. He said, we prefer to be poor and become independent than being slave in richness. So that was one of the historic sentences that was launched by Sékou Touré in 25 August 1958. So de Gaulle got upset because he didn't anticipate that a dominated person would have responded to him that way. So he left the country in a very angry manner. So immediately, 2 weeks after, there was a referendum, the 28th September 1958. Guinea was the only country to have voted no. All the rest said yes. So 4 days after we became independent, 2nd October 1958. The French government decided immediately to stop everything, to interrupt, to put a blockage against the country. They came to devalidate all the foreign currency at the central bank. They imposed sanctions on us. And Sékou Touré was dreaming that he could reestablish the relationship with France. So we fought till 1960s. The French were always withdrawing the monies, and we were obliged to create our own money. So Guinea did not become a socialist country by its willingness. It was because France has imposed a lot of sanctions on it. So at that time, there was East and West. So we had to turn to the Soviet Union and to China and to Vietnam and so on to help us. We had to survive. So it was a matter of survival. So the country suffered a lot of destabilization through coup attempt up to the secretary died in 1984. When he passed away, a new government took power. It was a military government. So Guinea was the most developed country, advanced country in 1958. We were very rich. We own 2/3 of worldwide reserve of bauxite. 2/3. A lot of gold, diamond, but could not exploit none of them because we were under sanction. So you have to know that why the country was in arrear compared to everyone. And because the country was destabilized a lot, and our education system, the health system, everything was destabilized. So it is just now that we are starting to emerge gradually. And I came in 2008 as a prime minister to try to do something. So coming back to your question, socialism was at that time a choice imposed on us, not something that we wanted to be. Of course, when the Berlin Wall were knocked down, you had the choice now. There was no more fighting between East and West, and the country was open, and we had to choose several partners. So one can say that today, it's difficult to say that socialism is an ideology that you can choose or not, but the most important thing is how to share the prosperity and the riches among the population. Whether you can be liberal or socialist, the most important thing is to make sure that you develop your country and to work towards having a country that is sharing prosperity and not a country where people are appropriating things for their behaviors.
The second. No? No? Yeah? Okay. Okay. The second question, given your expertise as the High Commissioner of the Organization of the Development of the River Senegal, what are your ideas regarding the importance of regional collaboration on issues such as, A, finding solution to the growing scarcity of resources such as water, and you wrote a book about it, so maybe you share with us your understanding about it, and B, conflict resolution, for example, through involvement of regional organizations such as ECOWAS in West Africa SADC in Southern Africa, and IGAD in the Horn of Africa.
Thank you, Madam. I consider water as a critical good for human being. Nothing can replace water. As a result, you cannot deprive someone from water and ask him to remain quiet. We as a Guinean, as I told you, we have 1,200 rivers flowing throughout the country and going in other directions. So we did consider water as a means of cooperation. And particularly, we have across Africa 4 big rivers. For instance, for you, Senegal, it's not only the name of a country, but it's the name of a river born in Guinea. You see, for many countries, you say Senegal, but Senegal is the name of a river that is born in Guinea, that is flow through Mali, Mauritania, and Senegal. So the river is somehow a border between Mali and Senegal, and between Senegal and Mauritania. So when those 4 countries became independent, Guinea became independent in 1958. I forgot to say that when Guinea became independent in 1958, 2 years after, all the rest of the African Francophone countries became independent because they had to fight against. The people were saying to France, why Guinea is independent, we are not independent. So we paved the way for the other people. So immediately after, the 4 countries decided to join forces to use this river as a tool of cooperation. So they create an organization which is called River Senegal Basin Development Organization. It is unique in the world. It is unique by 2 senses. The fundamental law says that this river and his water belong to all the 4 countries. No single cubic meter can be owned by Guinea only, or by Senegal, or by Mali, or by Mauritania. Across the river, every part of the river is a common property. It's unique in the world. Secondly, no infrastructure to be built in a river would belong to one single country. It will be a joint property. It's unique in the world. If you build a dam, whether it will be located in the Guinean side, or the Malian side, or Senegalese side, or Mauritanian side, you have to develop it together. You study it together, you fund it together, you borrow it together, you manage it, and you share a profit together. It's unique in the world. So this organization is headquartered in Senegal. So I had the honor to be the High Commissioner. Today we have developed 3 dams, producing about 600 megawatts of electricity, with 1,700 connection line sharing, connecting the 4 countries. We have a navigation program. We also have a dam at the end of the river where the capital city of Mauritania is being supplied 100% from that dam. Can you see? 200 kilometers is linking the dam to Mauritania. And the capital city of Senegal, Dakar, is being supplied from that dam for 60% of its consumption. So it's the organization that is selling water to Senegal, to Mali, to Mauritania, electricity, and so on. So I tried to develop, to share, to sell that model in the world. I was invited several times in Jordania, in India, in Peru, and in Vietnam, to show them that there is a possibility that water, shared water, can be a tool for cooperation and a tool for conflict. And today, there are many organizations in Africa that are coming to Senegal to copy, to try to replicate that. And the most critical issue today is the River Nile, which is making a very great concern for all of us. Remember that Senegal, the River Nile, started in Rwanda or Burundi, depending on what you want. And it crosses 10 countries. It ends in the Mediterranean Sea in Egypt, in Alexandria. When Egypt was colonized by the British and Sudan, the British imposed a law at that time saying that 80% of the water would be reserved for Egypt. That was around in 1920. Then Egypt and Sudan were sharing almost 90% of water. Then in the 1960s, other countries became independent. They say, oh, come on, why are we going to restrict ourselves from using that water and let it flow to Egypt and to Sudan. We need to irrigate our land. We need to build some dam to have also electricity. And they started using water. And Egypt became, of course, afraid of what was going on upstream. So at the point that there are countries try to organize themselves and create an organization which is called Nile Basin Organization. Up to today, for about 15 years, they have been negotiating one single article. Egypt cannot agree with them because there is a point there, Egypt is saying that there should be an unanimity to decide whether to decide to do whatever on the river. They are saying, no, we should just inform you about what we should be doing. At the point that today, you must be aware that Ethiopia is about to build the biggest dam in Africa on the Blue Nile. Be aware that the Nile is made of two branches. The Blue Nile that is bringing 85% of the water. So 85% of the water coming to Egypt are coming from Ethiopia. Whereas the longer Nile, the White Nile, coming from Eastern Africa, is just carrying 15%. So the Ethiopians are building that dam. They say, okay, we don't have more than 3% of the population access to electricity, and we need electricity. So we need to build a dam. So Egyptians try to lobby across the world so that no financial institution should finance the dam. So the World Bank or refused to. The Egyptians were encouraged. The Ethiopian made a collection, the national contribution, and they built the dam. And it's about to start this end of the year. And the president was assassinated 3 months ago, so it's created a lot of concern. So we are working to sell our model to tell them, look, why fight on water? Why not join your forces? Why Egypt cannot say, okay, I will buy electricity from that dam instead of willing to produce myself? Why not Uganda and also say, okay, I will irrigate my land and produce some goods and sell it so that we can have mutual benefits of water? It's one of the concerns. So he has to respond to answer your question. Water is a good tool for cooperation when you decide that you can share the benefits. And we are trying to sell that idea across the continent. Now, there is a rule in Africa now saying that although we have the African Union that's covering the 54 countries in Africa, there are regional organizations called, there are 5 of them. In West Africa, we have 16 countries, 14 countries called ECOWAS. We are dealing with every problem in West Africa. In Central Africa, we have a similar one. In SADC one, we have what? And in Eastern one, we have IGAD. So the rule today is whenever there is a conflict, instead of going to African Union or to United Nations, that organization should take care of it so that you can have a mechanism of alert and resolution of conflict. It has been very efficient. It is that organization in West Africa that was dealing with conflict in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and recently in Cote d'Ivoire. So it has been replicated now in IGAD in Eastern Africa, and in Southern Africa, where the Burundi situation or the situation in DRC is being attended by those organizations. Yes, Africans are today putting their forces together in order to put in place a mechanism that can help them to resolve their conflict. But the main weakness was how to finance or to fund that. And there has been a new initiative, not at African Union level, to say that there should be a new mechanism whereby each country should contribute 0.2% of its import duty so that it can pull together the resources and fund the mechanism of resolution of conflicts. We think that it can generate about $700 million per year that can be used to fund the peacekeeping problem instead of always asking for the European Union or from the US to finance our mechanism of peace and keeping forces.
Thank you. This is a question for the young people in the audience. As Africa is the continent with the youngest population, what do you think about the role of the young people play or should play in the democratization process? For example, as a generation which the use of cell phones and social networks run in its blood, how do you think it can be used to promote democratization-related issues, such as transparency of the elections? And as your expertise in the Liberian case, could we use the case of Liberia's recent election as an example for the power of young people to promote change?
Well, that's a very long question. I consider myself as a part of a youth population in Africa. And as a result, I'm at ease to try to respond to your question. Well, about 70% of the population in Africa are aged under 35, about 70%. We have a very, very young population. And the birth rate in some countries is very high, but in Niger, each wife has, an average, 8 children. Until the average in Niger is 2, right?
2.8.
2 point something. In Niger, it's 8. So we don't sleep there. Anyhow, having said so, the structure of our population is changing the way to address politics. And if you account 70% of the population at the age under 35, it means that in your program as a politician, you must address the concerns of this part of the population. Up to 5 years ago, African young generation were not much attending too much attention to politics because politics was considered as a way of, people were not very happy about politics. And people somehow not getting involved in politics, particularly youth and women. Things have changed recently because of three reasons. The fact that lack of work and has impacted on all of them, our young generals flying across Africa to go to crossing the Mediterranean Sea, they were dying on this desert. It has created a lot of consciousness about what to do to avoid that. And the civil society in Africa is now getting more and more youth getting involved in it. And it is one of the biggest progress that we have been witnessing in Africa. The young generation are getting involved in the civil society, and they are using modern tools of social network and telephone. Let me tell you that recently I was the chief observer of the election in Benin. In each polling station, the youngest generation was there having their telephone. Immediately after casting, they will photograph the results and share it. So the government can no longer, before you publicize the results, they have aggregated everything themselves and they have population on the network. So I had the chance to go to, I don't want to name it, the former president. I told him, look, you cannot rig this election. You must go by the result. Otherwise, everybody will destroy your house. Because people are now ready to refuse to wait for the government to destroy or to deviate the result. So it took him only 2 hours to recognize that he has lost. Whereas before they were dated 1 week, 2 weeks to try to manipulate, to change, to reverse the result. So it was not possible. The same thing happened in Liberia. In Liberia's case, one should say that George Weah, who was a football player, soccer, his personality was very attractive for young people. Secondly, he had lost the first election. Then he was intelligent enough to go back to the university, to get a degree, and back to run. So based on fact, first, he is a football player. Secondly, he demonstrated a lot of courage to go to the university, study, and come back and improve his knowledge. And he was able to show to the young generation in Liberia, look, I'm like you. I'm coming from a poor family. I didn't bribe anything. I didn't steal anything. I fought for myself. Why don't you join me so you can change this country? So his slogan was very, very motivational. So at the beginning, the vice president who was competing against him was sure that George Weah would never win the election, because the first poll showed that he was leading by about 60% of the vote. He didn't care about even fighting or campaigning. He was so sure that he would have won. But he did not see the way George Weah was emerging from week to week. He was changing the whole system. People were joining him, mainly the youth, the young generation. And the result was very surprising for him. So he went by a very large margin, 62 to 63%, which was, there was no way he could have contested it. So it was very good lesson within the region. And I can tell you in my own country now, the local election took place some 6 months ago. It was a big revolution. The young generation took over almost everywhere. They are no longer listening to the religious people or to the traditional people to say, okay, vote this way. No, they are connecting, they are sharing information. They have their own way of deciding how to go, how to move. And for me, it is something that our sociologists, our anthropologists should study to see how Africa is changing. I'm very optimistic on that issue.
Thank you. And another question regarding democracy and democratization. What is your stance regarding the debate that is prevalent in many discourse cycles, including here in Israel, about limiting the terms of the head of states to 2 terms? Is it applicable, in your opinions, in the political climate prevalent in many African states?
That is a very current debate in Africa. Very current debate. I was listening to one radio today. The opposition is fighting against the current government that they want a limitation of mandate of term to a president. And then the ruling party was saying, well, why do you want us to stop? Look at in the US, George Bush, father, had to, he ran the country for a while, and then after that, his son succeeded him. Then we all say, okay, but there was an interaction between the two. Then he said, okay, in my country, we can all compete, but why you want me to step down and wait for continue? So there are long debates, but let me say that it depends on the country. At the beginning, we were being, let's say, under the impression by the religion that, okay, it's God that is dominating the leader. So when God has dominated someone, you should wait until God will remove him. So that was the tendency that was used by many, many leaders to use religions in order to remain in power for as long as they wanted. I think this time is over. Why? Because mainly our leaders, when they come to power, they forget that they have been elected to serve, not to serve themselves. It's very important. You are at the service of the population, not population, it is our service. So they gradually go into a very large attitude of misappropriation of public goods, public finance, public budgets, and at the same time, the poor are getting poorer. A very eclectic group is becoming rich, and everything is being pocketed in a way that is no longer sustainable for the largest part of the population. This is why in many countries now, in our country, people are saying, okay, we have to limit the term, because if we leave you continue that way, we will never, never change our condition of living. So it started in Benin in 1990, where we put into what we call the National Conference. They were very courageous. they said, look, let's knock down everything. Let's draw a new constitution, and we'll impose a term limit of 2. And what happened was very, very interesting. The president at that time, he was a military man. He came to power by a coup d'etat. He accepted to step down. The election took place. His contestant won the election. The man spent 1 term, second term, but he ran the country so badly that the military came and he was elected, the one that stepped down. And he ran the country in a very positive manner. He had done the lesson about the way he was, because he was not under account for what he was doing, whereas in the new situation, he was obliged. There is an additional account that he is considered today, he passed away just a year ago, Mathieu Kerekou in Benin. So many other people, the country take example on him in Cote d'Ivoire, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, and so on. So one would say that, particularly in West Africa, apart from Senegal, that remained the only stable country where no coup d'etat took place, almost all the other 15 countries in West Africa did experience a coup d'etat. So it's very important to know where we are coming from. So having experienced coup d'etat, having experienced the period of unilateral, one single party leading the country for 20 years, people are fed up with having a kind of dynasty running the countries. Of course, there are some cases today. People are saying the Rwandan case can be an example, but Rwanda is emerging from war. So maybe one should say, okay, they need to build their nation because the war had destroyed so many things in the country that maybe it's important to have someone that can guide them towards some kind of stability before renewing this issue of term limits of mandates. But it's a debate that one can be pros or cons. Those who are cons are saying, okay, look at Angela Merkel in Germany. But there is no counterbalance in most countries in Africa. This is why it's always good, in my belief, that we do go for term limits so that we can always give a chance to other people to try to demonstrate what they can do.
Thank you. We often hear news about the clashes between French speakers and English speakers in Cameroon. Is this, to your opinion, a neglected case of post-colonial struggle for dominance, or is the Anglophone-Francophone split still prevalent in contemporary reality of African continent? And in this regard, could you elaborate more about France's current policies, attitudes, and influence in Africa, for example, from the political perspective?
Well, I think there should be 2 separate questions. Let's take Cameroon case, okay? Let's go back to history. Africa was shared as a cake in 1885 in Berlin Conference, okay? France, Germany, and England, and Spain, and Portugal met in Berlin in 1885. They shared the continent. They divided the continent among those 5 countries. So most western parts were given to France. Most eastern parts were given to Britain. Germany had only 2 countries, Togo and Cameroon. And Britain had Sierra Leone, Gambia, and so on. So we were based on that rule until we became independent. Now, what happened that incidentally after First World War I in 1918, Germany was defeated. When Germany was defeated, the 2 countries, France and Britain, took over Cameroon. They shared Cameroon among them. It's very important to know where we are coming from. So Cameroon moved from a German country to partly French and partly English. For 4/5 of the country became French colony, and 1/5 became British colony. So the 1/5 part was neighboring Nigeria. The other part was neighboring the other Francophone countries. So starting from 1918, after Germany was defeated during World War I. Now, in 1960, during the wave of independence in Africa, the Francophone part of Africa, of Cameroon, became independent. The Anglophone part, they decided to organize a referendum whether to join the Francophone or to remain themselves. They split. The northern part decided to join the Francophone. The southern part decided to join Nigeria. So they added to Nigeria. It's very important to know where we're coming from. So Cameroon now had one Anglo-Saxon state and one Francophone. At that time, they had agreed that it would be a federation of two states. Their flag was having two stars. They called themselves République Fédérale du Cameroun. Unfortunately, 2 years after, the president at that time decided to smash the two stars and to call the country only Cameroon, no longer a federation, meaning that the Anglophone have to merge among the Francophone side. So they marginalized the Anglophone. This happened. That continued up to 2 years ago when there was a new business law called OADA that was adopted in Africa. The Anglophone part requested that law be translated into English. So they started fighting. So then this is where all these problems started. It then exacerbated until recently. And the current president didn't pay attention to it. So one would say it is not exactly France or it was because that the Francophone president at that time didn't pay too much attention to the necessity to recognize the particular cultural part of Cameroon. So this has nothing to do France and now to respond to
yeah, but maybe I will ask because we need to leave a little time to Q&A.
Okay.
So I will skip the question also about China. So maybe we can talk about it later.
Okay.
And I will ask a final question. Then we have a few minutes for Q&A.
Yeah.
In recent days, we have heard a lot about Israel's return to Africa.
Yeah.
Which was exemplified by the last visit of Chad President Idris Deby to Israel. What in your view should be Israel's priorities over the course of this process? Should it be, for example, applying to continental or regional organization in Africa or approaching individual country? And I would like also to ask you something about the rumors of Israel maybe returning to Sudan too. So what should be like the blend between morality and realpolitik in diplomacy, if it's okay? I know that I didn't ask it before.
No problem. We have a saying in say that state don't have friends, they have interest. It's almost everywhere. So now coming back to your country, this is my first time to visit Israel. And I know that we have so much assets in this country. Yesterday I had the privilege to visit the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. I discovered so many ties between this country and Africa in many respects. And if I have to, I can't give an advice to Israel, but I know you have so much assets that are not very, very well known in Africa. And we need most of your expertise, your courage, your intelligence, your dedication, that could be really a way to strengthening relationship between Africans and Israel. In the past, Israelis were waiting to have first established diplomatic ties before going to work, which for me it was a mistake. You can develop business ties. You can develop education, you can develop many other things, philanthropy. And by so doing, you will beat the attractiveness and the consideration in the mind of the people. And then gradually things can become more easy to build and to develop. And I think today, your expertise in water, in irrigation, in solar, in many other things are so needed in Africa that by promoting that in several ways, Israel has very important tools to conquer not only the heart, but also the friendship of many African countries. I'm happy that your government has started now to be more realistic in going. I know that there was a time whenever there was a vote at the New York United Nations, most Africans were voting in bloc against Israel. It was because there was no much awareness of what was going on the ground here. So I think time has come now where you should sell your country in a more realistic way, not relying only on diplomatic ties, but developing other type of connections.
Thank you. We will take, we have about 5 minutes for Q&A, so please. Yes, you are.
Your Excellency, you played a very crucial role in the process of transformation from dictatorship to democracy. Can you take us back to the events of 2008, 2009, and tell us what happened?
Okay, that is a very nice story. Believe me or not, I became prime minister by accident, okay? I was in Cairo for 14 years as a banker, and one day I had gone to Paris for an interview, and suddenly my telephone rang. Someone asked me, "Are you Mr. Komara?" I said, "Yes." "Hold on for Captain Dadis Komara, who had just made a coup in Conakry." I didn't know that he had made a coup. So the man told me, "Mr. Komara, good evening." I said, "Good evening. This is Mr. Dadis Komara calling from Conakry." I said, "Who is Dadis Komara?" And the man got upset. He said, "You are asking me who am I?" I said, "Yes, sir, you are calling someone who doesn't know you. Can you introduce yourself?" So he got angry. He asked me again, "You want me to introduce myself?" I said, "Yes, sir." So if you don't know who am I, be aware that since this morning I'm the new president of your country, and you are not aware of that. So I said, "Sorry, President, Mr. President, I didn't know that you became president. What can I do for you?" So he asking me so many stupid questions. Then suddenly said, "I need you tomorrow morning in my office." I said, "How can I come to your office tomorrow morning?" I'm now in Paris. I'm even not in Egypt. Then he got upset. If you don't come, I'll send you a criminal lawsuit so that we can keep you and bring you back. So I said, "No, we are not going to go so far." So I came back to Egypt. Then I asked him, "Why are you calling me?" He said, "No, it will only one will be here that will talk." So I bought on the plane. While I was in transit in Dakar, I got a message on my telephone that I have just been appointed prime minister. So I landed as prime minister in Conakry. So we started discussion. So our first contact was very nice. He told me that they want to keep power for just 1 year, and we are going to go organize the election. It lasted only 2 weeks. They changed my mind. And my friend Michael from Israel came to visit me as a new prime minister. So I read that my country was getting into a serious mess. So I managed not to deviate from the previous declaration. So they were very upset against me. They wanted me to follow them, which I refused. So I contacted many friends, particularly the American, the European, so that they helped me to package a roadmap so that we can move toward organizing the election. When they were made aware of that, they cut everything from me. They didn't provide me any budget, any salary. So I spent my term as prime minister, no salary. I had to sell all of my property to finance my office and everything until we went at the end of the process. Fortunately, so at the end of the process, his bodyguard shot on him. I took him out of the country in Morocco, and we moved on to organize the process until we ended. So after that, I resigned from everything. I set my own consultancy firm. Then I was recognized by the United Nations African Union to promote peace and democracy across the continent. That's all.
Adi?
My recent focus is on China-Africa relations, and I would like you to speak about it, what do you think about the penetration or the neo-colonialist of China and Africa?
Yeah, thank you very much. It is a subject that is very important for all of us, but there is a big mistake that is being made outside Africa about China. Remember that we are very poor. Today we are 1,200,000,000 population. Only 40% of people have access to electricity, no road, no dam, nothing. And according to the World Bank, we need to spend at least 19 billion per year for the next 20 years to build our infrastructure, road, port, railway, and so on. And it's happened that no one can give that money to Africa. No one. Now you have presidents that have been elected, they have to deliver. And they have raw material. There are someone who needs raw material. Do you think they can cross the hands and say, no, I don't want Chinese money because it's going to be colonialist? No. China is the only country today that can provide both sorts of funding for Africa. It is very, very important, regardless of what people can say. We need 19 billion per year to fill the gap of infrastructure. World Bank cannot deliver more than 1.5 billion per year. All the OECD countries cannot add more than 3 billion per year. Who will fill the gap? Who? Young generation are very angrily requesting to have electricity, to have energy, to have everything. At the same time, Chinese are offering 65 billion in the next 5 years.
What are the consequences?
No, I agree. For me, as an economist, the debt is not the problem. It's the bad debt that is not good. If you borrow intelligently, you invest in something that can reward to you and be able to repay the debt, that is good. But if you get the debt and you spoil it in building prodigious building or some other things on corruption, that's not good. But I insist that anyone who is willing to borrow, to invest in something that is absolutely essential for the country must borrow. But you must make sure that the borrowing is utilized in a very proper way.
I'm very sorry, our time is... and thank you very much, His Excellency, Mr. Komara, for such an illuminating talk about many aspects of democracy, democratization, politics in Africa. Thank you very much for coming to us and talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you.